1991, there was a chaos, not a coup.
Oh, so civil war.
Yeah, civil war. And then the entire governance structure went out of the window.
The Inspire Us podcast.
I think even Africa should look for more unity and now regions to come together to be, countries like we can have maybe 5 countries in the entire Africa. We can join the entire West Africa if we have to look for a way to develop. This issue of secession, Somaliland trying to leave, has been, catalyzed by the long state absence, because Somalia did not have a government for a very long time now, 30 years plus. It's not just something very small.
Yeah. So in 91, you guys had the coup. And then ever since, you haven't really had a stable government, or you've had some sort of democracy, which isn't...
Exactly. In 1991, there was a chaos, not a coup.
Oh, so civil war.
Yeah, civil war. And then the entire governance structure went out of the window, like completely destroyed. So Somalis, what saved was like each community, each region became community. There was the warlords, and then the warlords went, the Islamists came, they went. Now a small, government was, a transition government was built that transitioned into a federal government.
Okay. Who was the fighting between? Like, what were the many different factions?
The thing in Somalia, the fighting parties has been changing. It's not like, 2 groups or 3 groups fighting. First, it was the government that was a totalitarian government, and then generals and, military, leaders left the military, and then they created their own juntas, then they fought against the government. And when they overthrown the government, they didn't have any order among themselves. And then they started fighting each other. Then that's when they were called warlords. They got the name warlords. And then the warlords kept on fighting. The older ones went, the new ones emerged, and then Islamists came. And, inspired by, Taliban style or other things. And then the Islamists came, they covered a lot of the region. Even the Islamists themselves, divided again. They didn't stay in one group. They were Union of Islamic Courts. Then they became Al-Shabaab.
Wow.
And then Al-Shabaab itself is split into ISIS and Al-Shabaab. And then they started to fight against the central government. So it's a complete 30 years, kind of series that had its own episodes.
But 30 years ago, when the chaos broke out, millions of people fled. And you were part of those people who fled. You were just a young boy. And you had a long story of, you were in this refugee camp. You grew up there. And then you were able to study in Kenya. You were able to get a master's and study in the UK. And then miraculously, 30 years later, you went back to work in Somalia, connected in these different spheres of, organizational development structures and political structures. Can you give us some insight? What is it like now to work in Somalia, to be back in Somalia? For all the diaspora Somalia that don't want to come back, give us some insight.
Well, there's a lot of spectrum in the situation in Somalia. So it depends on which you look, what part you look. Myself, I didn't, decide to just stay in Dadaab, then come to Kenya. And then these were just happening spontaneously. They were just happening. These were not every aspect that you mentioned. I didn't know 3 years before that whether I will end up here. These were the options of life that I had that were popping up. I came to the UK, studied, and I knew when I finished my class, I deserve nowhere else than to be in Somalia. So I looked at the UK. You know that I follow a lot in migration politics and how states are accepting or rejecting people. And when I first came to the UK, that was the time when Liz Truss was in power, and then immediately Rishi Sunak came, and every day in the news is about migrants, refugees, and I thought, what's going on? I knew immediately I was not welcomed here.
Wow.
I shouldn't.
Is that how you felt?
Yeah, that's what I felt. And it was very surprising that it was not coming from, European descent. These were children of migrants.
What, saying that?
Yeah, saying that, talking about it. And I was like, okay, now.
That was a big shock for me.
That's a big shock for me. And then I said, okay, where can I contribute? That was Somalia. And I didn't want to stay in Kenya because I've stayed in Kenya for a very long time. I could go back to Kenya to work. My family was in Kenya then. And immediately after I left London, I went to Nairobi. I stayed a few days and then flew to Mogadishu. So I didn't know a lot of the things that were happening in Somalia. I knew I was following everything, but I didn't live the reality that was on the ground. Somalia is not a very easy place to work. It is a very complicated place to work, and especially working with the government, of which I started to work with the government. The government is, as you can imagine, is now very weak. The state, structures are not well funded. The regulatory systems in which the staff or the people work are not, very clearly set. So everybody comes. Someone, like the first time I started reporting to work is, you come to work at 8. At 8 when I came to the office, no one is here. Wait until everybody comes around 9:30 and then they're leaving at 11. The day is over. I was like, what is going on? When will we do this job? The job doesn't, deadlines, no one respects it. So it was because people are not, the system is not built in a way that punishes or rewards those who work. If you have a contract with the government, you will pay anyway, even if you work or not. If you work the entire day and night, you are still paid. So the system doesn't differentiate these two different people. So I then moved to the UN. I started working with the government still to support ministries, and work with, districts. And the biggest challenge in Somalia, working in Somalia, is the accessibility to communities. That was a big shock for me. A place that is 5 hours drive, you have to look for a plane to take you there, because in between there's a village that Al-Shabaab stayed, so it's not safe to go on road. So you plan for 2 weeks, and then the last minute, your flight is cancelled. So there's a chartered UN flights that goes around into these small airstrips in these villages. So to just make sure you go to that district, and monitor an activity that's going on, you plan for an entire, month, and then it might get cancelled. Then plan for that, and then your output is very demoralizing. So that was one aspect that I never imagined it will be this hard. And sometimes because of the rules and, security threats for UN staff, I was not able to just do things that I could do as just civilian, because of the risks associated with working for international organization or the UN. So, and I was still working with the government, with communities, and it was very rewarding experience. I think for Somalis, we have for a very long time been dependent on organizations from, whether UN or non-UN. And that has become the service providers instead of the government. So if the people want health, it is being provided by UNICEF, WHO, Save the Children, all this. If it is other things, social protection, it's been offered by, NGOs. So the people are more, connected to the international organizations than to their own government. So part of my work was to build government systems so that the district authority is able to, provide health, education, other social services that they need. And, giving them that role was very difficult, especially the capacity in terms of the people who represent the government. The level of capacity in, giving services to the people was very low. And a lot of people who are capable of, in the Somali spheres, are not given this opportunity to contribute. So there is a level. Those people who remained behind, who were in Somalia, they did something like a state capture kind of. They don't want other people from maybe the diaspora or other places who can contribute, who have studied well, who have capacities to take over. They won't allow, because this is their job. They feel insecure. And at some point, I resonate with them, because there are no alternatives for them. If they leave, they don't have life. They will tell you, my friend, you worked, you left the country, you studied, you had opportunities. I was here. This is all I have. You can't take it away from me. So the government itself did not, the leadership of the government have not created a way in which people with real talent are able to take charge and, run the state affairs. So there is huge capacity issue. And this capacity issue is not a Somali thing. There's a lot of Somalis with capacity. But the people who are in the driving seat are not the people with the capacity. And they will not let other people to take off. So those are the things that I've realized. But still, there's so many gaps to contribute where everybody can come in. And slowly I was able to find myself within the community. And that's part of my realization. Yeah.
Did you fear that you might have been pushed away because you had this experience in a Western institution, you had this fancy master's degree? Did you also fear that when you got back, you might have received a pushback if you were to, be there and make a career?
Well, not only expected, I experienced.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there are jobs that I applied, perfect match. And when you apply, you are told, okay, people, even candidates who want to, looking for the job as well, are lobbying that, do not put him in the interview. He will beat us in the interview. He will take the job away from us. Do not put him in the shortlist to be interviewed for the position. That is the level I have experienced. And people are very uncomfortable, especially people who are in position of influence, who they are afraid that you take away their jobs. So they feel like you are here to replace them because of their capacities. There's that, insecurity. And in terms of experience, I've experienced myself, yes.
Yeah, it's such a shame. And I was actually having this conversation yesterday because this issue is everywhere across Africa. And like the systems there, they don't reward merit. It just rewards. It's all about connections and who you know, and if you'll allow someone else's corruption. And it's sort of a case of the chicken before the egg. Like you need to get better people there. People are going to be more honest and more accountable, and who are just generally better. But the system sort of thwarts them out, so they go away. But you also need them to come back and improve the institutions. But they're being pushed out, and it's just never-ending cycle of just, I don't know, demise almost. And
very true. I think when you look at why Africa, especially countries like Somalia, why they cannot develop, if you just randomly look for that, one of the first, I think I want to sure bet it's because of corruption will come immediately. That it's because of corruption that the state cannot improve. For me, early on, I thought corruption is the misuse of state funds. That's what used to come to my mind. But the biggest corruption that is ailing Somalia at the moment is wrong people who are in charge of, the way they were selected. People are not qualified for the positions. They cannot utilize the opportunities around them. Huge projects from the world, maybe from the World Bank or even from the UN that is given to Somalia or from the European Union are failing because the wrong people are managing it. You realize a project of 100 million is run by someone with no technical capacities to run anything. And you realize maybe it was running for like 4 years, 5 years. At the 5th year, it is all over blames and fighting, and then projects suspended.
Yeah.
Rarely projects get executed to finishing.
It's so bad.
This person is lobbying for the next big project coming. Everybody knows that, okay, so-and-so was in charge of this project and it failed. It closed in the 4th year instead of going for 6 years. But the same person you then see a new project, big project coming, will be in charge of. And then the same thing happens. So I've realized the real corruption that's ailing the country is giving people positions that they don't deserve. And people who deserve it are outside waiting, looking for it, available, but no one, is given it.
Like the system rewards incompetency. It rewards people being dishonest, and it's this self-perpetuating cycle. Like my cousin, he works for the African Finance Corporation, and he was like, Dara, it's like, I'm not joking, some of these people can hardly count. Like it's really bad. Like they're very uneducated. And not to be disparaging to those who are uneducated, but if you are in these positions, you need people who are somewhat competent, but they're there because, they help keep this corrupt system going. And it's just such a shame because it's like, how can you break this cycle? People want to come back. They generally want to come back and help. But when they do, they're left with egg on their faces. And it's
absolutely. I think that is the truth everywhere. That I remember one time I was in one of the airports. I won't mention the country in Africa, and I was queuing and. It's not like Europe where you scan your passport and then go, but someone has to look at your passport and maybe put something on a keyboard and then put in that computer some details. And there's this mom on this desk in a very big airport for an entire country, and she will look for the keyboard. If she presses A, she's looking for Y, like this. And there is a complete, conundrum, like the people are queuing. If you see 500 people are queuing, and it takes hours for her to finish. And if you look at that country, it has very many young people who are educated, who can type with microsecond, they can type everything. I was like, listen, Africa is doing this, and we want to. Those things are like things that you can spot on. You can see very quickly if you go to Africa.
Honestly, going to Africa, it gives you a headache because some of the stuff you see, you can't explain it. It's just so ridiculous. It's like, guys, why are we doing this? It's such a simple problem. It's so easy to be sorted out. And honestly, this is why I get so frustrated. And not to say, because especially a lot of people in the diaspora, perhaps mostly in London, they blame all of Africa's problems on the West. And we don't even have to get into that. But they choose to ignore that, like, listen, there's so many things internally that we can improve, but there's no political appetite or it's just hard to coordinate people to do. And it's like we don't even have basic emergency services in these countries. Like people die all the time. Like hospitals don't even have anti-snake venom for people who get bitten by snakes. And you have girls going to different hospitals just to try and find this anti-snake. Like the country is so broken. And it's like, no, we can't absolve agency from ourselves. Like, there's so many things that we can do. Like, it's not all the West. And I just wish we could go back into looking a bit more inwards and like, no, we can solve some of our problems internally. And I just, it gets me quite frustrated.
Yeah, it's I agree with you 100%. That's what's happening. We tend to easily blame outsiders for our own mess in Africa. I honestly think that's very true. And something else I have spotted in Somalia is people are rewarded based on the level of support they give to the leaders. There are people who do full-time work in praising leaders, sycophants, like
full-time sycophants.
Yeah, full-time, and it's paid for them, and those people end up being nominated for or given to position of very, very, very rewarding positions. Talk of ambassadors, talk of leading big institution like the National Registration Agency, or like the manager of an entire airport, or the manager for the executive director for the entire port city, running, handling millions of money. And that person, if you look at how they ended up here, if you go back to their feed in the social media, you will completely see that this person posts 4 or 5 times a day praising a particular leader. And what happens is people who have competency, not only from the diaspora, they are very bright people who studied within the country, who were in Somalia. They studied, they worked hard. They are very capable of doing a lot of things, but they don't want to sell their souls, praising leaders, and then they end up being kicked out of the government. And the other thing that I always look at is the private sector. The private sector in Somalia is booming, like there's zero wastage. And if you look at it, they are using the same level of, they have the same market of supply from, personnel. But the people they selected are people who do their job. And for example, banks in Somalia, or even businesses, they open very early and they close very late. And they don't even have shifts in staff in most of them. Someone comes maybe at 7 and then leaves at maybe around 8 at night. They work that long hours. But if the same person is put into the government, they start coming at 10 and leave at 11.
Sorry, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, so that's when you see like, private enterprises are, doubling their profits every year. But a single project within the government does not succeed. Like I was in one of the hospitals in Somalia, and I asked, how much did support have this organization given to this hospital? And they tell me, over the last 2 years, $6 million. Right opposite that hospital is a private hospital that people go. I can assure you, the entire capital that went into the private hospital is not more than 1 million. But it gives 100% better services than the public hospital that in just a very short time had 6 million funded. The thing is, this revenues do not go to the hospital. It goes to pockets of people, and corruption is crazy level. You see someone that has he works for the government. He's maybe a director of a department. His basic salary per month is around 800 to 1,000, in between there. This guy is in Dubai. He's in Istanbul. He's in Malaysia. In 1 year, he's taking like 10 vacations. He's in business class in one of these.
It's ridiculous.
And you know that this person had really taken his toll from, money from public coffers. And even people can even name the name of the projects that they have embezzled. But what happens is these people have impunity. No one wants to talk about it. And people instead go praise them and then get some money from them.
Okay, so it's interesting. You made this comparison between the private sector in Somalia and the state sector. And from what I'm taking from this is, so you don't have this rampant corruption in the private sector. Funds are used efficiently. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Because
private sector in Somalia is booming. There's no wastage in private sector.
But don't you think that's remarkable? Because in most places in Africa, the private sector is probably just as bad. I mean, so we know someone who actually started a business. She was here. She started a business in Ghana. And she was trying to get things going. She was trying to coordinate all the workers and whatnot. And she was doing this over a year or so. And she got to Ghana, and nothing was done. Like everything she was trying to coordinate, it just all went awry. Like all the materials she was trying to get together, the stock for the shop she was trying to run, none of it was actually bought. People just used the money she was sending to go and do other things. Like there's so much corruption in the private sector. You can try and run a business, but your workers are probably going to try and like fuck you over as well. And that's such a big issue in most of Africa. So it's great that Somalia doesn't seem to have that issue.
Yes, I think yes. Even in Kenya, the most profit oriented, like the company with the highest returns in terms of profit is the telecommunication Safaricom. It's a private company. Private sector has a lot of success, even in Kenya, as much as I know. But every year, Kenya Airways is bailed off. Like it needs money to run. So a lot of the private sector in Somalia, though the owners are mostly in charge or close by, they tend to succeed a lot compared to the. That's why Somalia has the government is being pushed by its donors and its consultants on public-private partnership, and in places where public-private sector is happening, the services are so good. Can you imagine? I was living in Kismayo for 2 years. I never had a blackout. The electricity is throughout.
What?
Throughout.
Are you serious?
I think the maximum I had, like the power went, was like 10 minutes, 5 minutes. The rest...
So you don't have to use a generator. The power was just on.
The power is on. It's from private sector.
Wow.
So the same as the telecommunication, it has been on always. The water supply is private. It also works. Just give one of these to a public, it is going to disappear. You will not even see where it has gone. Yeah.
People don't know about this though. People don't know this about Somalia. It's not to be rude, but I think most people's perceptions of Somalia is like the epitome of a failed state. It's like a country which is completely dysfunctional. No one really talks about the good sides to it.
Yeah, I think Somalia has a lot of success stories to tell, especially part of this is hugely contributed by the private sector. The internet connection in Somalia is superb. Like it is very fast. I'd never have any issues with the internet. The water in the big cities where the private sector has invested, the water are clean. They come throughout. They are running very well. The banking system, so the mobile money is going so well that now in London I use a private owned bank. I have their card and it works for me. If I want top up money there, it takes me 5 minutes to 2 minutes to transfer money to any account. That is made possible by the private sector, and there's a huge success in the private sector in Somalia across health, education. There are universities in Somalia right now like that can compete with big institutions in the region. Like if you look at the way they are modernizing their system, the way they are training their students, the quality of education that they are now giving to the students is huge. Like for me, I'm very much blown by the way what they have done, more than I had ever expected. Yeah, so there's huge success in the private sector in Somalia.
So does that keep you hopeful? Because we talked about these things that corruption can lead to a lot of frustration. You seem to have a determination that Somalia will rebuild, and you want to be part of that. What keeps you hopeful?
That keeps me hopeful, of course, and but we cannot stay without a government. The private sector needs regulatory systems that are, neutral, non-partial, and especially, when these companies are profit-seeking, they do, everything to get that. So it is very important that we have a government, and no one can replace government. Government cannot be replaced. It is needed. You might have alternatives for maybe services that you need. If you maybe need healthcare, you can go to maybe private health, private education. You can do all this, but at the end of the day, you need the government to be in control. Even places that have been completely privatized, made private, should be regulated very strictly. And I think that's where we have a huge gap. And that can be a disaster sometimes.
Is there police in Somalia?
Yes, there is police. There is police in almost in every big major town in Somalia, and they work. There's traffic. There's no traffic light in Somalia at the moment, but we have traffic police. We have investigative police, and we have all sections of police. We have prison wardens, and all this they're doing. I had participated in capacity building for police, especially on how to keep inmates safe, dignified, in a humane way. I offered trainings to the correction part of the police. So I know, and sometimes you see people who are very dedicated in the police, who are doing their job, who are actually, if some of them, you wonder their level of understanding and the way they are improving themselves to make sure they are offering services. But overall, I think what the biggest letdown to Somalis were the top leadership, who had no vision, with no political ideology. Someone just finds himself at the top of the government, and it's a complete mess. Appoint that, demote that, attack that. So they finish their time in a complete chaos. I think most of our problems is at the top.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I know this is quite a tired debate, but I just wanted to ask you about the authoritarianism versus democracy debate, because I guess I was having this conversation yesterday with this Nigerian bloke in my gym, and we were both we were both agreeing that Nigeria needs authoritarianism. This democratic system does not work. We're not ready for it. It just leads to a lot of fighting, a lot of disjointed politics, and we think we need authoritarianism. What about Somalia? Do you think, these 30 years of, quite disjointed democracy that you have going on, what's your take on this debate, specifically for Somalia?
Well, I honestly also have a very strong opinion on democracy. And I think democracy is a prescription made for a very disciplined, citizens who know their rights, who know their obligations, their duties, who are able to have understand, who can read, merits, who can maybe then vote and keep in power those who they think can do better, and remove people who are not performing. But I think in countries like Africa, democracy is even itself misunderstood, in the sense that democracy is you can refuse something. Then the government says, okay, we need to collect tax. And then someone says, I will not pay tax because I'm free. I don't want to pay. What will you do? The people misunderstood the meaning of democracy to an extent that they don't want to pay tax. Like they completely fight with the government. So, and that's when I think we need to have some level of authority, very strong, to ensure that there's some level of discipline in the entire country. I think when government can make sense in even the good thing it does is when it can execute. Now what happens is governments in Africa, because of democracy, cannot even execute good things that they intend to do. Because of, in the name of democracy, the parliament don't like you because you are enforcing more tax to make sure the country is able to invest into big projects that can change, people's lives. They say, oh, no, we won't accept. We will go in the streets. That's not democracy. So I think democracy at this stage in many countries in Africa, it does not suit. I think we need to have a guided dictatorship, not a dictatorship as in a dictator that just stays in power.
One time you told me Somalia would need a king.
I think we are more structured in the Arab, like the Arab world, like Dubai, for example. They have a king. Qatar, they have a king and everything runs. I think we are very much divided that we don't even need elections. We don't need to have those options to divide us more. And I think because Somalia has a similar ways, because it is very homogeneous, and like the Arabs, we have clans. People have different clans. I think a king will have suited us, but if only that king is able to have a very, strict way of making sure that there is total serenity in the entire country, and he is able to give, a system that, that's able to do something better for the citizens. I think most of the Somalis, we are no longer interested in who is in power, like who is the president, who is the prime minister, who is the area member of parliament. We don't care. Most of us now care, can I get security? Can I get healthcare? Can I get education? Am I, safe in my house? That's the thing we have. And I think we brought democracy very far. If your child is malnourished and is in acute, malnutrition situation, and they are in their deathbed, you will not ask who is going to lead, who will be the leader. You will ask what is going to save my child. And I think if we have, a way that we are getting a dignified life, we are good to go. That's why the way we have so much built many times divided into, like in a small village of not less than 100 families, it's divided that much because of democracy because of the situation they are in. They are told, okay, they are aware of democracy and its manifestations, but they don't have anything on the table. So that's why I think democracy came very fast to us. And democracy itself, I think it gives the same value of the thought of someone who understands every aspect of the citizens to someone who has no understanding of who they elected and why they elected. And if you give him a second chance, you tell him, okay, repeat again, they will probably choose someone else. So democracy for me, especially in Somalia, I don't think it's something that will give us anything.
Can you talk about your experience being a refugee and essentially growing up in a refugee camp, which was the biggest refugee camp in the world?
Well, I think in that refugee camp, it was a small world itself. It had everything. At that time, I could go to school. The school was free. I knew in few years I'm going to go to high school, finish high school, and maybe I didn't see much beyond that because I was young. I was just clouded by this.
How long did you live there?
I lived in the refugee camps for about 18, 19 years. Yeah, long years, yeah. So I went to school. I used to go to school, study, go to Quranic school, study, and then in the afternoon go play football. It was fun, complete fun. It was safe. There was no insecurity. But at the same time now, looking back, there was a small health post where we used to call it health post. It's a small kind of a hospital. If you have more complicated sickness, you are taken to a main hospital. But if you have something small, you go to this hospital. It used to be free. The school was free, and water was free. It was provided by the UN, and it was very fine. As a child, that never bothered me at all. Even though my mom, my dad, my siblings were not there, but I always knew I have something good to be happy for, and I will meet them and join them some other time. And that refugee camp, when I look, the services were good, and I feel very bad for the young boys and girls who are in those camps right now because of the funding cuts of today. USAID has been blocked. UN is running out of funding. Those children do not have, education. They cannot get the kind of healthcare I used to have in these places. They don't have water as much. I asked few months ago how the water is going, because the water used to go throughout, and now they are rationing the water because they don't have enough funds to continue supplying. So it comes in the morning 2-3 hours, and then it comes in the afternoon 2-3 hours, or 1 hour. It runs for 1 hour. You put your jerry cans, you fetch water, and then you keep it. So I really feel very bad for them. I think the world supported enough. He stood by Dadaab for a very long time, but it was largely on the Somali leadership in the Somali government not to find a way to make sure that they can salvage the situation. But still, that is a global crisis, and I really feel bad for the boys who are in my shoes then.
Because there have been talks about that the solution to these camps is integration and self-sustenance and all these things. But recently you told me that you came to a realization that, no, the solution must be Somalia.
Well, yes, I think it is there was principally, there are three ways to solve a refugee crisis. The first one, which is to resettle to a third world country, in which the world has been doing in small portions, like the refugees are taken to the UK, US, Europe, or across the world or country that are accepting, which was good. People who made that way, they found a final solution. They found a way to start their lives, and very good. The second way was to integrate into the host country, like Kenya absorbing, for example, Dadaab into its own cities and towns. The third way was to return back to Somalia. It's called repatriation, and it only happens by international law. That can only happen if the person is willing to go back to their home country, and it's called repatriation. So why I'm giving you all these options is, now resettlement, no, it's not happening at all anymore. We previously talked about the UK, the way they are talking about immigrants coming in. The refugee admission board in the US completely disbanded, and only white South Africans can come only to the US. So that also, resettlement, no option. It's not happening. The second option we had is to integrate into Kenya. These people lived here. I know of a friend who was born in Dadaab, and he got married in Dadaab, and his children are going to school in Dadaab now. So this guy, like, his entire world is in Dadaab and in the bigger picture in Kenya. So such person could, in your right mind, you will say, okay, that person lived in Kenya in his entire life. He can integrate. He is willing to integrate. But the question is the Kenyan system designed or ready to accept? No, it's not. One of the biggest, debates currently is, Somalis being vilified as, Al-Shabaab. Even Somali Kenyans are being ridiculed these days, that they are from Dadaab, they are from Somalia, they are not truly from Kenya. And when citizens are facing that level of discrimination from Kenya, and part of the politicians are constantly talking about it, like immediately when Trump started talking about Somalia, the former vice president that was impeached in Kenya, Rigathi Gachagua, started talking about the Somalis in Kenya as people who have aliens who came to or are taking over the country. You see, he's just taking the idea. Yeah. So these are people who was to integrate. You can't integrate into a system that is that confused, that discriminatory, that is that poison. You cannot just go into that system. And Kenya, for a very long time, as a government, was saying, "Oh, we could reintegrate. We could integrate the Dadaab. We can do something," depending on the funding on the ground. But the real action that was happening was to encamp the Dadaab, like isolate them. I remember a time that the government of Kenya stopped buses to come to Dadaab, like normal buses coming from Nairobi. They used to come. They said no bus should go. And I remember it was like a completely a shutdown. So integration is not an option that's available. I wish it was, and it was easier because these people were adapted to this. I think it is inevitable to have the repatriation. But we first need to sort out what's happening inside the country in terms of security, because the first thing is, I return, am I safe? If the security is being, corrected, of which major cities, most of them are now safe. The next thing is to ensure that these people are able to return. And I think that's where the international community needs to support Somalia in returning. The funny thing is, when international community, if at all there are fundings available for return, the cards for integration will also open. The government will say, okay, we can also integrate, give us the fundings, support
But the thing
us.
about integration is that even if they integrate, one thing you told me is that, and it's interesting, you fled Somalia, maybe you were one years old, maybe like you almost spent no time in Somalia.
Yeah.
You were in a refugee camp in Kenya, you even lived in other places in Niger, you've been around the world, but you told me you never felt more at home, comfortable than when you went back to Somalia, instantly.
Yes, because, that is, your psychology, your mind, everything knows where you belonged. I've been in Nairobi. I've never been, arrested or did anything targeted, or nothing personally happened to me. And I'm grateful that I was able to stay in Kenya safely for many years. But I was always staying in Kenya with attention. Like, I can be told, go leave. If that is in your mind, especially if it's your mind for years and years and years, it is not a wound that just heals.
But why did you feel like that? Was this because of the rhetoric around Somalians in Kenya, or you just had this inherent feeling that you couldn't?
It has been something that used to happen. Like, for example, in 2015, Kenya has taken a crackdown. They said, okay, we are removing Somalis. We will be actually, next week even, that's what the government said. The interior minister said, next week I will bring big lorries and collect everybody from Dadaab to take to Somalia.
It's like ice before ice.
Yes, not ICE in that sense. ICE is arresting someone. He said, the people are already gathered, isolated. He said, I will bring lorries. And take everybody to Somalia. I remember in 2016, the Refugee Assistant Secretariat or Department of Refugee Affairs, one day they just disbanded. And the following morning I was supposed to go to their office, get my refugee movement pass to travel back to campus in Nairobi. But today, in the evening news, it says that was disbanded. Where will you go? I was in my third year in my undergraduate, and I didn't know where else to go. I had to start calling people, and it's like, what's happening? What should we do? I remember we had a small meeting between all of us, or around 10 of us who were going to college at that time. We said, like, what do we do? And then only to realize that we don't have any other option. That's the end of it. We were able to travel to go to Nairobi that semester because the university intervened. The university wrote to the UN wrote to the university, and then the university wrote to the Ministry of Interior, and then we have to be given a special paper. Like you are traveling, and you are traveling with like 3 pages stamped by different people. Like page 1, it says from Kenyatta University, we will request this is our student because of this situation. Until the situation is sorted, allow him to travel to campus. And then the second page said this request from the university was endorsed by the district commissioner, obeying orders from the Minister of Interior. And you see, when you stay in a country like that for 18 years, and when they're upset by anyone, by maybe a Somali Al-Shabaab interferes with them, and then they're annoyed, they're like, okay, they're bringing the lorries, they're taking you away. The funding is from America is stopped, okay, they're taking you away again. Something happens, and this world, more likely something will happen very in one way or another something comes up, and then they trigger. And Kenyan government, especially the government, has used a lot in using the Dadaab as a bargaining chip in many ways, and sometimes to show that they really mean what they are doing. I remember one Somali student was in 2015 arrested on his way from campus to his accommodation. In between, he was arrested and deported to Somalia. Yeah, I know that guy. He was saying, I was a student, this is my document. I was like, no, this guy puts you on this lorry, and then the other one puts you on this restricted area, and the following day it's like, oh, leave the country. You exit.
Return to Somalia.
Return to Somalia. So because of all this that were happening in my life throughout, I had to always have that option that this is not really home, even though Kenya was home, and I have great friends, a lot of good friends. The funny thing is, the people in Kenya are very humble, but the state has been very tough for a very long time. And somehow you wonder, did they only elect for government those people who have bad intentions, you ask? And the people are very warm and very welcome. But the state has never been great in my own experience. I, until today, don't like the sight of a Kenyan police van. It has, I don't like it. Like even in news when I'm watching, if I'm watching maybe a clip and
You
I
see
see
it,
that
you're
picture,
like,
I'm like, whoa. I go to, like, I shut down myself. Because I trained my mind for many years to evade from that. Without having any criminal records.
So is there not a part of you that feels Kenyan?
Yes, a lot, yeah. But when it comes to Somalia, I can never compare. Even though I stayed only a few years in Somalia and a very long time in Kenya.
So you're excited to go back home to Somalia and just build your life there?
Yes, I have been to places in Somalia that no one knows me, and I just feel home.
And now you're working on a new project called Talopath, where you want to connect the diaspora.
Yes,
Correct?
yes. I've created this organization. It is an initiative, more or a hub, a community hub. For the last 2 years when I was in Somalia, I've seen a lot of things. I'm very outgoing sometimes, and I normally find myself into debates, even within Somalia. Especially people in power, we normally have these debates. And this has shown me the level of, the different ways in which different people are perceived. For example, returnees who were in Dadaab went to Nairobi, studied, and went back to the country. Most of them, those young people who educated, went back to Somalia, very ambitious for Somalia, the way I passionately, explain about Somalia. When they go to Somalia, they are perceived as Kenyans who came to snatch jobs or something. This is someone who entirely all these years been harassed because they are Somalis. And because they have been absent for a very long time, when they first came, it's like, keep low profile, try to adapt, be safe. It's like they can't say anything. So the entire government is like they are an outcast to the government. You rarely find them in the government. But if positions of merit is contested, you find them in the NGOs. Across all UN and UN, if the position is fair, they take it because they went to school, they have studied well, and they take. In the government, they are not there. I have asked friends, why are you not in the government? Why are you not finding a way? It's like they will tell you, okay, the government, people are, you have to have connections, you have to talk to that. And elders, community elders clan elders play a very big role in Somalia. And these clan elders have a way of rewarding people that they maybe know their father was Sheikh so and so, or uncle so and so was your father who lived here for many years. But for you, maybe you left the country 30 years ago. Your father may have died in the civil war, or he died in Dadaab few years later, or he's still in Dadaab. He never returned. He's just an old man who just stayed away. They don't know your father. They never contacted. So even though you are their blood, the same clan, they don't give you the position. There is no one, they are fighting for you, saying, okay, give Abdullahi this position. He's from us, or he's my son, or something. So they end up, being, pushed away from the government position. And on one side, they are very scared to speak out because the system is insecure. They were told, okay, when you go back to Somalia, things are not very safe. Keep low profile, do your job, kind of. So Talopath is a place, a platform that gives returnees, people from the diaspora, a platform in which they can contribute to the government, in which they can also help, a platform in which they can be seen for you. And I have been doing this. I have been helping students to apply for scholarships.
Wow.
Remember, Hamdi was in Oxford. Abdullahi is in also Edinburgh. Also, another friend is also recently went to Edinburgh again. So I want to have that center in which young people who are looking for opportunities can come. They can find, okay, if you want to apply for development studies, international development, there's a school called SOAS. You can apply if you qualify. There's this scholarship, there's Chevening, all this, where they can, a resource center where they can get motivated. If you are down, you want to talk to someone, this is a place where internet connection is a hub. You can go. If you want to have an interview, you are not sure of what to do, you can come and say, okay, I have this interview. I don't know what this is. It's a kind of like,
it's beautiful.
I want to have like the community place where they can in the evening come watch maybe Premier League game, can talk instead of maybe going to drugs, going to extremism or something. A place where they can, feel at home. Like sometimes also a place where you can look for jobs. Because of my connection, few times I got someone quickly asking me, can you recommend someone who can maybe can you give us maybe 5 people, find 5 people to collect the data for us, enumerators. A center where someone can even come and say, okay, these days I am not working, where can I look for a job? And yeah, I can also do some few research, collect, information, even both in business, for the private sector. If you are from the diaspora, you are lucky to have some cash. You want to invest in construction, real estate, so you want to invest in agriculture. We can give you a few hints as you get by in the few starting days. It's a kind of
beautiful,
absolutely
stunning that is.
Yeah, so it's like that pathway to the interior. It's like path. The talo is a Somali word, which means to consult. Like you ask for your way out, and then this is the path towards your consultation. So,
wow.
Maybe we can end on this. Our path, connected in a very strange way, and for some reason we ended up doing a project in Dadaab. We had the chance of visiting it. Never would I have believed this would happen. Never did I think we would end up doing this big football tournament and this big initiative, and through our friendship we would, do this big thing. And I was waiting a long time, we've been having this shirt, and we've getting a lot of people to sign it. But I was waiting a long time.
Am I allowed to sign the
I
Dadaab
can't-
or
I can't believe-
I am this. I'm the classic.
I can't believe we don't have the main person that started all this. You know, having signed. You know, it's a beautiful jersey. We have Inspire Us and Community Aid Network, who's you know, our friend Otoa and Mary and Dadaab, and you know, we have a beautiful message in the back. It says "End gender-based violence." We have a lot of people who sign. You know, from our friend Hamdi that you mentioned to from Ramla Ali, you know, a boxer, to even Rory Stewart, and you have Laura Hammond, Christine Chang, our friends that went on the podcast.
Mira signed, they say.
Mira signed as well. You know,
You came to London or?
I saw him in Geneva at the UN.
T-shirt went to.
It went a lot of places. It went a lot of
Around the
places.
world.
We even have the president of OFCA, which is the Refugee Association in France, there. So, brother, please, it would be a big honor. I will give you pen.
My signature is bad mostly, but this time it's going to shine.
Yeah, bro. What do you want to sign? Maybe you want to sign here?
Yes. Let me sign there. Write the name.
Yeah. Beautiful, man. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you so much. Pleasure to sign this T-shirt.
Yeah.
No time coming.
Very historic.
Yeah.
And very historical.
History's been made.
I have the pink one you gave me.
Yeah.
I normally use it.
What's pink?
We made
It's a
made
pink
different one. We made a pink
format of
shirt.
it.
Pink.
Pink.
Oh, pink.
We have a
color,
pink
the
version.
Oh,
We did a
okay.
blue one. This is the white one. Yeah.
I use for training.
Yeah, for sport. I'm happy you used it.
You run a fly.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
I was like this in December. So
You?
January worked so hard.
What? Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
You knew.
yeah.
Abdullahi, an absolute honor, pleasure, privilege.
Thank you very much for hosting me again. I'm so happy to be back to London. I hope to be back, or you also come on the other side. I hope to see a day where Alex and Dara, you are able to land in Somalia and freely see for yourself. And
And not get banned from the
Yeah.
US while doing so.
Yeah. Hopefully. So anytime, welcome to East Africa. Welcome to Somalia, Kenya. And thank you so much for hosting me.
An absolute pleasure.
Thank you, brother.